that a lot of teaching, especially in textbooks, teaches history from one perspective, and often that can lead to some misinformation. So it's important to know that, because if you don't know all sides of the history, then you can't make a clear interpretation of history. You can't, because as a historian you have to, you're interpreting the history before you and trying to make sense of the past. And so if you don't know all sides, then you can't really make sense that well.
There's so much strength in data and the ownership of that data and an understanding of how to interpret and convey that data. I'm a super concrete person, and I take a lot of solace in the idea of data in the classroom, and I think it's such a strength for my students to be able to work with it. So whenever I am feeling despair about disagreements over things that feel very concrete, things like structural racism, systemic oppression, one of the things that I do personally is I travel to the data and I look at the sources and I find the people who are employed and who are expert in collecting that data and interpreting it. And one of the things I really love is to offer that mindset to students, and we wrestle with data together, and we wrestle with sources and who commissioned this data, whose money flowed into creating it, so that they feel a little less lost. I feel like sometimes in the world right now there's this feeling that you can't know, and how do you know? There's so many conflicting pieces of information, and really understanding, interpreting data and conveying it to other people is a skill that can be learned. And so I think I want to give students the solace of being able to go back to it, to find it, to cite it, and annotate their interpretations of it, and then to avail their interpretations of it to their peers as well and co-construct meaning together. And also, I want to give them the idea that it's okay to change my mind and to be wrong, and let's look at what the data said, maybe I'm wrong. So in part, I feel like offering those opportunities within the project is one thing that helps students, gives students that. Maybe they can give it to their parents as well. And in part, it's modeling the idea of, I don't know, let's go see, let's go research together, and let's discuss what we find and kind of engage. And so you'll often find me within a project, like discussing with a student, just facts that what we each think, and then seeking out research and trying to sort it out together. And I feel like every time I can model that for them is a time when hopefully they're recording it in their memory and they can grow up and they can be doing the same thing. Like, I don't know, let me go check the data.
Yeah, with so much information out there these days, it's really hard to know what you can trust and what you cannot trust, especially for kids, because you can get an answer to anything just by Googling it right away, and oftentimes that's just what they're going to go with. So in my classroom, especially when I am presenting real-world data, articles, anything like that, the first thing that I have students do is I have them look at, where did this come from? Okay, is this a reliable source? Okay, this data is from CAL FIRE. Cool, we can trust it. Oh, no, this one is from National Geographic magazine. Okay, let's talk about, what is this organization? Are they funded by the government? Are they funded by an academic institution, or are they just a private entity? So that's, especially when I'm doing real world data, that's the first thing that I always have them do, is analyze, where did this come from? Okay, once we figure out where this came from, then we can decide on, okay, let's take this, let's trust this information, or let's just look at it and then have a critical eye on it. It's really, really important, especially in math science, to create that as a norm, to create that habit in kids. Data can easily be skewed. I even gave them some data that where some of the axes are just elongated or squished, that can make it look very different. That was really truly my underlying goal of that project, was for kids to learn how to read data.
Especially as a humanities teacher, I'll embed the idea of media literacy and fact-checking into my project. And so, for instance, in my systems renovation project in my 6th grade classroom, one of the first steps was researching the idea of conspiracy theories and the idea of fake news, and the idea of misinformation. And we looked at how that happens, why that happens, and some examples of that happening, particularly with vaccinations and things like that. And they were able to read articles about how it had affected teenagers like them who perhaps wanted to get the vaccination for the measles but were not allowed by their parents because of conspiracy theories, not because of credible concerns, which of course there are credible concerns with vaccines. And so we were able to sort through that and get to the nuance together. And after doing that, they went on to create news articles of their own. And so they had that standard in their mind of, oh, this is what I don't want to do, this is what I'm not, not shooting for. And then by creating their own piece that they know is going to go out in the world and having it, having that editor fact checking their work, it almost set a standard in their mind that I hope they then take to the news that they read as well. That's just a process that I try to embed in any kind of literacy work I'm doing with them, where they're going to go out into the world, is the standard we have to hold ourselves to. And maybe even let's look around at who's maybe not holding themselves to that standard as we're reading our newspaper or looking at our TV.
Being a teacher, you're intrinsically biased, obviously, no matter what you do. It's just impossible not to be, because you're transferring information to students. So what you choose to show or don't show is completely on your shoulders. Yes, we have standards to follow and things like that, but the way that you present them and the weight that you put on one compared to the others, that's totally biased. So being a math science teacher, I actually think I have it very easy, because I can be as unbiased as possible when presenting things to students, because I present things in a more analytical and statistical manner. And it's far more empowering for them to come to conclusions on their own when they look at statistics and data, when they know how to read and analyze and understand trends that are going on in the world and pick out those inequities or those things that need to be changed on their own.